Well, good morning to you, Ollie.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you.
I'd like to introduce Ollie T Cool. She's one of the three artists who have an exhibition currently at Timeless Textiles called Perspectives, and such a treat to be able to talk with you, Ollie. So would you like to talk a bit about the inspiration for your artwork in Perspectives?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a fantastic exhibition to work on. The two other artists that I was with were so generous and inspiring that it was great. And we all took slightly different approaches to perspectives, but for me, it was always going to be about the ocean. I lived by the ocean, I grew up by the ocean, and I just have a passion about the blue stuff out there. And I think that over this last summer, that passion became probably something even deeper, because during the bushfires, the only thing between me and the actual wall of flames was our little bay of ocean and about a kilometre of water. And so now I feel that I owe the ocean as well. And so it started out as just a passion, but now I would say the ocean is something that is that in a way I even owe my life to, because there was nothing else there. So trying to spread a bit of a message about protecting the ocean and looking after it is something that I feel I can do through my artwork.
Now, if it's not too traumatic, because people overseas will watch this, Ollie, can you just talk a bit about the bushfires that we had? I know it was very traumatic, and then the impact that the ocean did have for you, because it was quite life-saving, wasn't it?
It was indeed. The fires, I live about 3 hours south of Sydney, and our fire started at the end of November. It was a fire we called the Forever Fire. It went for about 76 days. Personally, I became impacted on the 1st of December when I was driving home from somewhere and flames had cut the road. And we then, it actually started as 3 fires that grew and grew and merged into a sort of a mega fire. And the size was just enormous. It was from 45 kilometres north, 45 kilometres south, and about 10 or 15 kilometres west was all on fire. So it came to a certain time where our town of about 15,000 people, we had nowhere to go because all of the roads were cut. And so those that were left, and with no way to go. And the fire we'd have a hot windy day and the fire would go for a run, and then we'd have a few cooler days and we'd go whoosh, whew, that's good, and we'd quickly prepare because we would be advised that there's another hot day coming. And this fire just kept coming and coming. I have 16 friends that lost their whole house and livelihood, many more that lost their paddocks and outbuildings. And some of those people lost it on the 4th time. So the fire just came back and back. We couldn't breathe. The air quality was hazardous most days, and we had that weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And then the fire took a little village, which is about 20 minutes by car, but really only about 7 kilometres as the crow flies. And there were nearly close to, I think, 180 houses in that little village, of which over 100 were burnt on one day. And the fire then came racing through the bush towards our house, but it stopped at the beach. We had an inlet, a little river coming out, and it burnt all the way to the river's edge and all the way to the beach. And it really was only the ocean that stopped that fire racing around the bay and taking our house. So it was very scary times because, you go to sleep watching flames and you wake up, and in the night the smoke would come heavier and fall down. And in the morning, sometimes you couldn't see your front gate, and you were living and breathing that every day. And because we were cut off from everywhere, we all had to look after ourselves. So as a community, we really bounded together and looked after ourselves.
So when you say that you're very indebted to the ocean, you're not saying that very lightly, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've always felt gratitude to the ocean because it gives me mental peace and it just gives me so much joy. But now I would actually say that the ocean saved me. So I have an enormous debt to that ocean, which will take several lifetimes to repay.
Now, Ollie, can you just talk about some of the pieces that you put into this exhibition?
One was called Bycatch, and that is because with our sort of commercial fishing practices, there is so much bycatch that goes on, not just with undersized fish or wrongly targeted species that just get thrown over, but there's an enormous number of other marine life, including birds, that get caught up in huge nets. And we are so disrespectful to life that doesn't look like us. And the amount of bycatch that goes on is just criminal. And it's therefore, you know, we can do better because we can source our fish from sustainable areas. We can go fishing ourselves, but stop fishing once you have your dinner. And we can just be very mindful of the way the food that we eat has been sourced and try wherever we can to go for something that is sustainable, that has some marine stewardship about it.
And can you just describe that piece?
Well, that piece was one of those things where it's great to stretch yourself. And what I did was I got some Rio bars and I took some welding lessons and taught myself with my teacher to weld. And so I welded, if you like, an iron net. I then took some shark skin and fish scales. So I ate the fish, and in this sort of principle of not wasting anything, I would make leather out of the fish skin, and I would make, if you like, a fabric out of the fish scales by drying them and putting them on a gel, and then coating them with an organic cotton, so they became a material. So it was really using materials from the ocean. Now, the fish was one that I caught and ate, and that was where those scales came from. And the shark skin I got from my local sustainable fishmonger, who would normally throw that shark skin away, but he keeps them aside for me now. And I treat them and dry them and use them in artwork, trying to spread that message about the sea.
Because the Jackson series was also another that you've used from the sharks. Can you talk a bit about that piece, those pieces?
Yes, I can indeed. The Jacksons is about a Port Jackson shark. And the Port Jackson shark, when it gives birth, it almost vomits, if you like, its little egg casing, which is a lovely twirly egg casing with a beautiful flourish on the top. And if you're wandering along the beach, sometimes you can actually find these shell casings. And so I've been collecting them for several years. And I just had this sort of vision of taking some of the shark leather, because when the Port Jackson shark gives birth, if you like, that shark is then on its own to do, it survives or it doesn't survive. It's a very tough form of parenting. And I just felt the need to hug and nurture this egg. So I wrapped the shark eggs in actual shark skin, and they take on a very sculptural, beautiful sort of form. So it's a sort of a nurturing, caring sort of role that you're trying to make the shark mother do, which clearly she doesn't always do in nature.
They're such beautiful organic shapes. And the last one I'd like you to talk about is the one friendship, because you did this with two other women, and I know you're good friends, and such a beautiful piece, but it was technically quite difficult, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, because we were indeed friends, Glenys Flora and I, and having worked for 2 years on the exhibition, we became even better friends because we met every sort of quarter, and we had, as a group of women often do, these lovely conversations and exchanges, and it was a very positive You know, you can often as an artist be a little bit scared to work with other artists because there might be judgment or criticism, or you might not feel that you're as good as the people that you're working with, and all of those insecurities that artists have. But I encourage you to do it because we got so much from each other, and I got so much from them because we were very positive, we weren't competitive, we were only just enjoying the experience. And I wanted to do a piece of work which was quite complicated in a way, but simple in a way, that showed the way that friendships and people in your life become intertwined. So I took 16 photographs of my own work, and then Glenise and Flora were kind enough to let me take 16 photographs of their work, which I then had, however many photos that works out to be, I think it's 48. And I then went to the computer, which is something I don't do that often because I tend to, as a photographer, like the photography side of my art, I try to do in camera, but I went into the computer and I actually wove those 48 pieces of work together to sort of signify the depth and the complications that friendship can have, but how at the end of the day, through all of those complications and discussions and experiences you have, you end up with something quite beautiful and something to be treasured.
And it's a very beautiful piece. So Ollie, thank you so very much for your part of this exhibition called Perspectives, and the show is online and we'll add the link, and it's been a delight to be able to talk with you today for you to explain your part of Perspectives. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much to Timeless Textiles. Fabulous gallery. Thank you very much.